My name is Stevie Leahy. I am a professor here at Northeastern University School of Law. I am also the resident fellow for the Center for Public Interest Advocacy and Collaboration, or CPIAC. I'd like to extend my thanks to our director, Lucy Williams, as well as our managing director, Shannon Al-Wakil, for supporting this event today. We are thrilled at CPIAC to welcome William Allen and his attorney, Patty DeJuneas. My screen? No. One moment. We appreciate your patience with all of these tech issues. Our conversation today is entitled Correcting a Fundamental Injustice Through the Clemency Process. I'd also like to extend a very special welcome to all of William's guests who are here supporting him today. In January 2022, William was granted clemency by Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker after 28 years of incarceration. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this process, here in Massachusetts, clemency can take two forms. The first is a pardon, which is forgiveness for the underlying crime. The second is commutation, where you reduce someone's sentence. This is part of our state constitution, and this power is vested in the executive branch. Over the past few decades, the use of clemency in Massachusetts has been sharply declining, and Governor Baker only just recently used this power for the first time with William this year. William and Patty are going to speak today about this very cumbersome process and their battle to convince the parole board, Governor Baker, and the Governor's Council to commute his sentence. They're also going to talk about William's many successes while incarcerated and since his release, and the incredible person that he is. Despite being sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, William advocated for himself to gain access to programs that are not normally available to those serving a life sentence. William completed 45 programs in continuing education, including alternatives to violence and restorative justice. William maintained employment through his 28 years, working as a referee, a barber, a special needs assistant, among other positions. William was involved in the companion program since 2014, where, as the advisory board of pardon said, he has demonstrated a genuine level of compassion and empathy in his work with the chronically mentally ill prison population. This is just a brief snapshot, and I am so excited to be able to hear about this from William and Patty directly. We are going to be saving space for questions from you all at the end. If you're attending via Zoom, you can put questions in the chat, and I will do my best to moderate those towards the end. With that, I'd like to turn it over to William and Patty just to introduce themselves and get started. So let's give them a round of applause.
Hey everyone, my name is Patty DeJuneas. I wish I could be there with you in person, but I have COVID. So I'm a criminal defense and civil rights attorney in Boston. I was brought on to Team William, as we call it, a little late in the game for commutation. He had first filed a petition in 2014. I came on board in late March of 2020, right when the pandemic hit. And we'll talk in a little bit about everything that's happened since then. But I have to say it's been a real honor and pleasure to represent William. He's hands down the best client I'll ever have.
My name is William Allen. You know, I don't have COVID. So that's why I'm here today. And I'm gonna really enjoy sharing my story, you know, and, you know, I have a brother here that was with me throughout my incarceration, and, you know, I'm happy that he's here also.
So to get started, to know William, the first thing that will pop up in your mind is how the heck did you end up doing life without parole in prison? So can you just talk for a couple of minutes, William, about how it is that you ended up there?
You know, I used to go, when I was in school, I was a little, you know, nerd, I would say. I was a youth counselor. I did everything right. But one thing I didn't do right is I didn't know how to lead. I was a follower. And I had followed somebody that I thought loved me more than my brothers and my family. So I put him ahead of them. And to realize when this crime happened, you know, it was all in his hands, but because he did it and I was there, you know, I got awarded the same charges as he did. And I was sentenced to life. And he ended up getting he ended up coming out to a second. So that's how I got a natural life bid.
So just to clarify, William was convicted of felony murder. And at the time, if you participated in a felony and somebody died, you were pretty much automatically guilty. So William, in his trial testimony, was very honest and open and admitted that he had agreed to participate in the armed robbery. But the murder actually occurred in a different room. He had no way of knowing what was even going on. But because he just would not accept that he was guilty of first-degree murder, having not killed anyone, he decided to go to trial. The co-defendant pled, and he had been out for 11 years by the time that we were in front of the advisory board of pardons. So, I think it's fair to say, William, that the reason that you're there today is because of all the programming you did. And so up the last couple of years is when I first started paying attention, and I've noticed that there's only between 14 and 50% of current prisoners who are enrolled in programming, which obviously is not nearly enough. But can you give us an idea of what programming is and what is generally available in the Department of Corrections?
Well, there's not many programs at all, but the one that they have is, I would say it's workable. And the only reason why it's workable is not because of the administration, it's because of the prisoners. And the prisoners, they wanna learn, but they need, tools to learn. So they make up programs. Like, for example, the first program I really supposed to was alternative violence. Now, I first went, it's not a program where they get good time, so a lot of people don't want to do the program. But I was like, let me go and check it out. So I went in there, I did the program, and it was one of the best programs in the world because it had grown men crying, it had grown men expressing themselves, and it opened up doors to where they wanted to do more programs and they wanted to lead the program. And like I explained to my lawyers in them, they from there for 10 years. I'm on the list to be into a program, and say somebody else got 99 years. They would bump me back and put him front. So I would never get into a program. So if you don't advocate for yourself to get into these programs, you would never be in a program. It'd be like The Walking Dead, walking through prison, and be like, what am I gonna do next? And that's how it's easy to get in trouble and become a victim of prison.
And so can you give us a couple of examples of what type of programming you did that you thought was very helpful?
I did all kinds of programs. They put a program to chase a roach around. So the first program that I did that was very rewarding to my heart was alternative violence. And then I did Men and Souls, and then there was I didn't hear about restorative justice until years later, but I did the companion program. With the companion program, it's like a big brother program for the mentally ill. And you have guys that haven't spoken to their family in over 20 years, but you're there for them. And they begin to love you like your family, and later on, and this, I will tell you a story about the companion program. But then there's a thing called restorative justice, and restorative justice, I heard about that, I want to say 2021, and in 2020-21. And the only reason I heard about that because another friend of mine went to parole, and the parole board said, why don't you do restorative justice? And then that's when we asked Chaplain Peg if she would do a bachelor of restorative justice. She did, so we had an idea of restorative justice. We advocated for it, and she was willing to just do the program. So, Men and Soul, alternative violence, and restorative justice are the programs that I think all prisons need. Because in order to mend the harm that you cause on the street, you have to mend yourself first.
And so I know that these programs really help to change you. And did you notice changes in other prisoners when they, from the time they started these programs to the time that they finished?
Yes, because, it's so funny because you never hear about the good everyone do. You always hear about that one negative. And, so far, I wouldn't even say so far, everyone that has gotten out before me or after me, you know, or with me, you know, they either, you know, own their own houses, they CDL, they get their CDL license, they own businesses, but you don't hear about that. You hear about that one guy that crossed the street and got hit by a car, and he was a known prisoner. Or you only hear about the negative stuff. You know, you don't hear about the William Allen or Stephen Penis or, you know, the Herbie Kalos or everyone else. You always hear about, you know, somebody that no one knows. You know, and it's sad because these programs, you know, the love is always in somebody, but these programs actually open the door, you know, to express that love. Because, you know, some people don't have family love and they don't know how to express themselves. So these programs, you know, you have grown men actually crying on your shoulders. I'm like, what are you crying on my shoulder for? You know, but you know, you begin to embrace that. And you can open that part of you that you would never know that you had. So I would say programming is so important. It's the most important thing in prison history. Programming. If someone don't know how to do something, they can learn it from programming.
I just want to comment a couple of things on restorative justice. William and another gentleman, Tom Kuntz, were the first people serving life without parole sentences to have their sentences commuted in 25 years. And William's contributions that we're talking about now, he had a very, I think the companion program says just about everything there is to say about William, in that he's got the biggest heart and the most compassion and a fantastic sense of empathy. And that really is what led to his freedom. With Mr. Kuntz, I think what led to his path to where he is now is he was really responsible for bringing restorative justice programs into the Department of Corrections. And I know one thing that really moved me, and I think the advisory board of pardons, as well as the victim's family in this case, is William, that you learned long ago, but really I think reinforced by restorative justice, is that all of the good that you've been doing in the world is to restore the harm that happened to Mr. Bester, the victim, and his family. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so you know, a lot of people say victim, you know, and I don't like saying the word victim because, you know, the guy that passed away has a name, and his name is Mr. Bester. And rightfully so, you know, I would say I played a part in it because, you know, I interrupted his space, and his space should have been interrupted. And, you know, Mr. Bester, you know, everything that I do in life now is in honor of him. So, you know, briefly, when I had my hearing, his sister was gonna oppose my hearing. And, you know, I wouldn't say I did such a good job. I would say God guided me to, you know, to speak the truth. And they say when you speak from the heart, you know, people see that. And she's seen that, and she was one of my best advocates. I want him out, you know. And, you know, the best thing that, you know, happened throughout this whole thing is that they forgave me, but they didn't forget. And I don't want them to forget, because I'm not going to forget, you know, because every day, you know, I'm walking, I'm breathing, and on his birthday, they have to go visit him, or whatever holidays or whatever special days, they have to go visit him. So everything that I do in life, or every step that I take in honor of him, you know, and of the family, and let them know that, you know, when they chose to forgive me, you know, I'm doing this to let them know that I appreciate everything that they did for me, you know. And if they don't forgive me, you know, I have to live with that because I did something wrong. So when it comes to, you know, Mr. Bester, you know, he's walked with me in my heart, and he's always in my heart. And he's not a victim. His name is Mr. Bester.
And this, you know, just the way that you speak about this is moving to me, and I'm sure to others. But it also displays a lot of, I think, emotional maturity. And these type of concepts is that what you learned through Mending Souls, restorative justice, alternatives to violence, are those responsible, at least in part, for your ability to articulate it the way that you have?
I would say yes, because, you know, sometimes, you know, some people don't know how to, you know, articulate it or, you know, express their feelings. But these programs actually, you know, teach you how to, you know, open those doors within yourself. Because no one can teach you how to talk, only you can, you know, and you have to, you know, absorb I would say, the tools. And if you're serious about, you know, wanting to learn restorative justice, if you're serious about wanting to learn alternative violence or what it's about, you know, you go through steps. So you go through the different phases. And like law, you're not going to go out there and all of a sudden, okay, I'm going to law school and I'm gonna go be a lawyer. So if I go today, I'm not gonna be a lawyer tomorrow. You know, you have to go through the channels. And it's like a baby. When a baby come out, he or she's not coming out running. I mean, she's coming out not even crawling, just laying there. You know? So those are things that you have to, you know, that's why programming is so important. And it's so important that, you know, whatever field or whatever you decide to do, if you take everything in, because if you don't, you know, if you try to miss a step, that one particular step that you miss can be the most important step. You know, so just try to take whatever you do in life, take it to the fullest. And that's what I do with these programs.
And I want to talk a little bit about the struggles that you had getting into programming and other people who are serving life sentences. I think we have over 1,000 people right now who are serving life without parole sentences. And even though our overall prison population is low compared to other states, we have the 6th highest number of people who were sentenced to die in prison. Now, you strike that. People serving life sentences, especially life without parole, what sort of problems do they encounter when they try to sign up for these programs?
Well, they'll let you sign up for them. They'll definitely let you sign up. You can sign up for any program you want. They won't let you in it, you know. And you know, we all had a model in prison. You know, those that were serious about, you know, helping guys that, because, you know, they gave me a life bid, and my mind was free, but my body was in prison. You know what I mean? So that's why it's a thing called institutionalized. So I wasn't institutionalized, thank God I wasn't. But it was easy to be institutionalized because some people give up because they try to do everything that they can in order to get out of prison. But the administration always finds a way to knock them back. You know, but you can learn on your own. You know, if you like restorative justice, you can get the literature and read up on it. But what I did was, I was like, listen, I'm not sitting here. You're not making me a victim of this prison. I want out of here. So I wrote to the Attorney General and I said to her, I said, listen, I'm trying to get to all these programs, but they keep denying me. So I would like to go somewhere where I can do programming. And she wrote back and said, put him in every program you have. And I swear they put me in every program they have. Every program I didn't want to go to, I could deny it. I could deny it. And when I did these programs, there was no other program there for me to do. And I told the story yesterday. There was this mean CPO. I'm talking about she was mean. No one liked her. And I was working in culinary. And when I was working in culinary, you know, she came in with another CPO that I used to talk to all the time. But she always had the prune face, you know, like, right? You know, I said to her, I said, before you leave here, I'll make you laugh. She's like, no, you won't. I said, all right. Before she left from culinary, she laughed. Right? And she was my biggest advocate to get out of here, to get to the casualty unit. And that's how I ended up in the casualty unit. And it was high selling from there.
And so it's fair to say that today that people serving life sentences still have a really hard time of getting to the top of the list for programming. Do you think that's still true? Or do you think that by you taking that initiative that you were able to open up the door for other people?
Well, you know, every time I speak, I always speak about programming. Programming is like the biggest thing. So now I spoke at the top to the bottom. And there's a lot of guys now that that are really advocating for themselves to do programs. And, you know, you should see, it's like guys that was, they just seen, you know, the light that was shining upon me and other guys that they's like, oh man, hold on, forget fighting over here. Let me do this program over here because I have a chance of going home. So now they have hope. And when you get hope to somebody, it's a blessing because now it stops. It makes the prison eyes open. And it was like, okay, we could try to work with them. We can give them this, we can do that. And that's what guys are doing now. They have hope. And hope is big. And a lot of people don't have that. You know, they go into prison, you know, they start crying and oh, I'm doing like bid. And I said, listen, take it from me. I did 28 years and I'm about to go home. And you can do the same thing. And yours might be a little less because the doors are open now. You know, and remember, in 25 years, accommodation never happened. But look, I'm here today talking to you.
And that's one thing that is included in Governor Baker's clemency guidelines is that commutation is meant to encourage people who are still in prison to do better, to do programming and to make whatever exceptional strides they need to make in order to earn their freedom. Now that's been in the guidelines for, 7 years, but and it didn't result in any commutations. But now that William and Tom have made it all the way through that very onerous process, I've noticed even with my own clients who aren't ever going to be eligible for parole and probably never get commutation, they have hope too. And it's the hope that they see in other people. I think it sort of restores their belief in the goodness of humanity. It really has made a tremendous difference in so many lives. And I think it's going to continue to do so. So I really hope, William, that you and Tom, the examples that you set are going to open up the door for a lot more people, because I know how much programming has impacted you. And, you've always been a wonderful, fantastic person, but I do think it's helped you in a lot of ways, including your ability to express yourself so clearly. So I do appreciate all of the hope. And I think at one of the hearings, William said, hope is everything. And for people in prison, I think that that's true. So I just want to thank you personally as a criminal defense lawyer for giving all of my clients hope and all the other prisoners who are serving time too. So one of the programs that you touched on a short while ago was the companion program. And that was very impressive to the Advisory Board of Pardons, Governor Baker, and the Governor's Council, and for good reason. So can you explain briefly what the companion program is, how you get into it, and what you got out of it?
The companion program, like I said earlier, it's like a big brother program. And it's for the mentally ill, inmates. And you have guys that, when I say they are really mentally ill, they are really mentally ill to the point where, they hurt themselves or, they hear voices or, they attack you. So when I first got there, I got there in 2011. And when you get to the cadre unit, you get the worst job that as they consider the worst job. And I was in an infirmary. So they had this old guy there named, they had this old guy named Eddie Julian, and he used to always sing. And I went there, I was bored one day, I went in there and I started singing with him. And, I don't know if you want to hear me sing today, but yeah, I was singing. And we ended up making up a dance, and him and I started dancing. And every day, I go in there and, he really had his mental illness was bad. But then he ended up, the companion program started. He ended up getting a companion. And at the time, I was already a companion without being in the companion program because I was helping everybody and I was being everywhere. And one day, 2014, I got bullied into becoming a companion. I was like, I said everything. I said, all right, you got that. So, I went through the course, you can't have no tickets, you have to be, in order to get to the cadre unit, you have to be, your record has to be superb. You have to not get in trouble, ticket free, no knives, no nothing. So, and you have to go through extensive training when you get into the companion program, wheelchair, mental health, everything. When I say you go through training, you go through training. And I made it into the program. So the guy that I had, which was Eddie Julian, I got bullied into taking him, and he was literally racist, right? Right? He was literally racist. But you would never know when he was with me. Because if you ask him, who am I? He's like, he's my black brother, and I'm his white brother. And everywhere I went, he went. Everywhere, and if I'm not there, he's finding me. And you know, he calls somebody, so I'll call somebody, he'll be like, he's my black brother, I'm his white brother, and hang up. That's what he used to do. And I'm talking about, he was in his 70s, but you would think he was in his 20s, because he just kept started walking around. I have to follow him where he go. And I'm like, Eddie, yo, I'm tired, I'm old. And he's like, I'm 70, shut up, let's go. All right, so then I follow him where he go. But you know, he was a riot act, he was the best. And you know, to this day, you know, he ended up passing away. And you know, he was one of my dearest best friends. And he gave me hope. He taught me something. You know, if I didn't know what empathy was, he taught that to me. If I didn't know what caring was, he taught that to me. Because he cared about me more than, I won't say my family, but I will say my family, you know, because every day he looked for me, you know, and I, you know, it was an honor to be his companion. So that's what the companion is about. It's about, you know, somebody showing you love that you wouldn't think you would get from anywhere else. And that's what he showed me. He showed me that empathy. He showed me that he cared, and he gave me hope that someone cared for me.
So one thing that William left out is that Eddie liked to hit people for no reason, and was quite strong. And you know, William was brought in to work with him because he was very difficult before William became involved. I also want to make clear that the companion program involves things like basic hygiene, teaching, you know, the people that are served how to clean their cells, how to take care of themselves, and just how to be in the world. So it's not just like providing companionship, it is being a one-on-one aid and providing whatever help and guidance is needed in that person's life. So it's really, it's an enormous commitment, and it makes an enormous difference.
Trust me, the companion program is so where, because Eddie, you know, he had his habit was to use the bathroom on himself, right? And he and I'd be like, Eddie, go jump in the shower, and wherever he's at, he's dropping his clothes and sitting in his chair, you know, and running to the shower. And I'm like, oh, Eddie, come on, Eddie. That was Eddie. So, you know, it was like no surprise with Eddie.
It teaches you patience, fair to say. All right, let's kind of switch gears and talk about the commutation process. And I think there's a difference between our commutation process and the commutation process as a procedural matter. And so when I say our commutation process, it started in 2014, but it took literally an army of people to make this happen. So I just want to make sure that I acknowledge everybody on Team William, Christine McDonald, her partner Alan, Robert Cordy, who is a retired justice from the SJC, and Second Chance Justice formed explicitly to get William out of prison. Peg Newman, who's there today, she was William's longtime chaplain while she worked for the DOC. Joe Moore, who William met when he was first incarcerated before he was even convicted. And there are countless other people, and Devin McCourty, the New England Patriots. All of these people rallied together, and we made sure that Governor Baker was aware that, you know, commutation is out there, and it's a process that should be used. So we did it to get his attention, and then the second part was to make him care. And so that was our commutation process from the outside Team William. But, you know, I want to talk about what the process is like for somebody who's in prison. And tell me about when you first learned that there was a thing called commutation and what your process was working with Alan and Chris towards that goal.
True story. When I called Chris, and I think this was the time that the closed courtroom, sort of got shut down. And Chris McDonald, my twin, she said, William, I spoke to Patty, and Patty said something about commutation, but it never happened. And she said, I don't know what I'm doing. I said, I don't know either, but I guess we'll learn together. So, Chris did some calls and, spoke to Patty, and every, people was, sort of shutting the door. I would call veterans. The veterans that was doing it for, over 30 years were saying that it's never gonna happen, it's never gonna happen, it's never gonna happen. But, when you have a persistent team that cares, and you have that good team, anything's possible. If you keep punching a brick wall, eventually that wall gonna break. And so happened, you had, Patty, you had Chris, the Catholic guilt. Yeah, that's another story. I ended up getting the Catholic guilt, and this second chance justice, they was just so tremendously powerful. They was out there when it was snow, sleet, fall, you name it, blizzard, they was out there, letting their voices be heard and letting them know that they wasn't going nowhere. And I salute my hat to, Governor Baker, because he took a chance on Thomas Kuntz and I. After 25 years, he granted us a commutation. And now I'm sitting here today doing so well. And Kuntz is doing so well with his work. And, I said to his lawyer one day, I said, listen, Kuntz and I are gonna do great things. And I said to the parole board, the advisory board partner, that we know the guys that are behind us gonna be, I want them on my shoulders and my back, and I'm gonna carry them to that finish line. And I meant that. So if I'm doing well and if I'm doing good, what Baker did, shine a bright light on everyone else. And so far, 8 people got a pardon, and there's another guy that's gonna get a commutation from Baker. And I'm not saying it's because he's taking a chance, because Kuntz and I did so well, and we opened the door, that we shine a bright light on everyone else. And because if we got out and we act a fool, they wouldn't have this the shining light that they have now. And we want criminal reform to be nothing but positive. We want no negative. And as long as Kuntz and I are walking this earth, we're gonna make sure that happens.
So William is an eternal optimist, and I'm an eternal pessimist. So I'm going to go back and make sure that you all understand what a long process it was. So William's first petition was filed in 2014. And I'd ask you, William, what happened? But the answer is nothing. And a petition was refiled in 2017, and nothing happened. Nothing. I don't even know if they acknowledged that it was filed. So William's petition and hundreds of others just sat there and sat there and sat there. And it was not until the pandemic that people started paying attention and urging Governor Baker to use commutation to minimize the prison population. So, talking about barriers to the process, I would say, William, tell me if you agree, the biggest barrier was that the governor didn't do anything. Nobody had taken any action on commutation for decades. It had been 25 years since the life sentence was commuted. So, I mean, do you agree with me that that's the biggest barrier, is just reinvigorating clemency as an actual remedy?
I agree. Because, you had, a guy did something, and I said that one apple spoils the bunch. And that's what happened. That one apple kept destroying every apple that was in front.
Now we're talking about Willie Horton, right?
That's really hard, yes, that one apple kept, destroying the ones ahead of it. But, in 2021, 22, me and Coots made fresh apples. We planted fresh apples. So now it's called the Coots and Allen apple. So now that apple that, was with Willie Horton is now for the rest. Because this governor here, and to be truthfully honest, I would say no one thought he would do this. And he did it. And he took a chance on us. And now we have new fresh apples and they red, so Coast and I are Cinderella right now.
So between 2014 and 2021, when we finally got some movement, in your mind, did you even think that this was possible?
I did, and I'm gonna tell you why. It's because of the great team that I had. How can you say no to them? If I think if a person would have said no to them, they wouldn't be able to sleep, And there were some times where, I felt discouraged, but being in prison, that's how you feel sometimes. But overall, I felt that I was gonna get out, but I just didn't know when. And when you have that opportunity and that chance of getting out, it seems like it's much longer and it's stressful. Now, without knowing that you're getting out, you can do your time. But when you have that chance of getting out, it seemed like a lifetime. I was in there like, okay, when am I going? When am I going? And I had two different people, Catholic guilt and Patty,
There's a long backstory to that.
So you have, and what it was, they complemented each other and they kept me grounded, even when, I would say I was getting sort of arrogant a little bit, I was, and I got shut down a few times. And, which is something that is easily to happen, especially, somebody like me, I'm not really an arrogant person, but, I couldn't tell that day, but I was blessed. I was lucky to have the people that I have in my life. And, what a lot of people have to realize, the people that are not close to you are the ones that will help you.
Yeah. And so when he's talking about being arrogant, I think the background on that is all of the attention that we had generated by telling his story. And so Deb Becker from WBUR, I will be grateful to her for all of my life. She got the ball rolling. And my job was to get William's story out there, but he wrote his own story. And as soon as people started to hear about what his situation was, that's when the troops started to rally up behind us. That's when we started getting editorials in the Boston Globe. Devin McCourty from the New England Patriots came on board. Local TV stations started paying attention. And so sort of understandable how that might make you a little bit arrogant, but a little bit, he's always been amazing and grateful for everything that's happened. But it took an army, and that's the best way I could describe it, to get his story out there. But it worked. He did all of the work. It took him decades to get to where he is. And that's sort of our process to where we got Baker to pay attention, and the Advisory Board of Pardons to pay attention. And once they did, William did his own hearing. We didn't do anything. We sat there. I think we spoke maybe for a total of 4 minutes, all three lawyers who were there. So William, I commend you for everything that you did, including the hearings, which were in your hands. At what point in all of this process did you start to think, wow, this might actually happen?
When my son, when he heard that, I have he knew his father was coming home, And my son, he had troubled times in his life. And, he actually changed his whole life around, for the good, and, I had, like I said, I'm a different breed than I can't compare myself to other, prisoners because, I had it fairly easy, because of the administration. Administration like me, I always worked, like I said, I was respectful and so forth and so on. And I never got in, and I didn't get in trouble like that. So when they called me to the office, they said, William, come talk to me. I'm in the office with deputy superintendent, this person, telling me how good, my hearing was and so forth and so on. Then I had the commissioner come and the cabinet says, you gotta get dressed. And I'm like, for what? You gotta talk to the commissioner. It's like, for what? So I'm getting dressed and talking to the commissioner. And then I'm talking to people that want to talk to me just to, because this was something that's never been heard of in over 25 years. And they wanted to be a part of it. And when, everybody was coming from all angles, I was like, yeah, it's about to happen. But I don't know, you know what I mean? So, and then you had, my brothers that was locked up with me was like, hey, when you about to go home, and they was more excited for me than I was for myself, because, when you down for so long, they become family, and you don't want to leave them. So you try to do everything you can to try to help them if you have this opportunity of being out. And, if somebody call me or if somebody needs something or if they need me to call Lloyd, listen, that's mandatory. I can't say no, as long as it don't hurt me, as long as they're doing it right. And if they're not doing nothing right, then they can't knock on my door because they have to be positive. So I think when all that was in that bubble right there, that's when I know I was going home. That's when I know I was going home.
And through this whole process, I know that the first thing that I wanted when you were free is to do something like this, to use you as an example of what changes need to be made and why they need to be made. But for you, what was the first thing that you wanted to do when you were free?
Well, the first thing I said, which didn't happen, I said I want some egg sausage and bacon. that was my thing. But the funny thing is when I first got out, my team was there, to wait for me outside front. And my father didn't know that I was getting out. And I ended up getting out, but we set it up so where, he thought he was just doing an interview, and Chris, the Catholic guilt, she was like, no, don't do it to him, I have a heart attack. I'm like, don't worry about it, I got this, don't worry about it.
Me too.
So we ended up, it worked out perfect, walked into the house, his girlfriend, I knocked on the door, then I opened the door, his girlfriend walked, she seems, she started panicking, she was there. She was like, your father took the dogs out. So the father took the dogs out. So I end up going around the corner in the house and he's looking at me. And I'm just smiling and he's looking at me. He's looking at me and looking at him. And it didn't register that, I was out. And he see me and he was like, oh, William, and just, hugged and embraced. And he thought it was my little brother, which I don't know. I was like, okay. But it was the most rewarding thing in life because, like I said, I lost my mother in 05. And my prayer, and I thank God for this, is that I got home to my only living parent. And now I am there to help him get through what he needs to get through. Even though he says, I'm still doing 12 years, I've been, picking up these leads and I'm gonna be doing it, but I still get harassed for that, but I take that all day.
Well, that's a good segue to the last topic that I wanted to talk to you about, which is reentry, leaving prison, coming back into the world and what that's like. And I think it's an important discussion to have because, 30% of men and women who spend time in prison end up going back into prison, into the system. Many of them on technical violations of parole, not because they've committed new crimes, but I think it's fair to say that the reentry process is very difficult. And, you've had probably the easiest time of anyone that I've seen, but I know that there's still been challenges. So, what do you think has been the most difficult part of reassimilating yourself into society?
Well, I say this a lot, even though I did 28 years, the team that I had made it easy for me. And plus doing like programming, tweaked I would say I was always a working person, but it tweaked my way of thinking. Okay, if I want something, I have to work for it. If I want something, I have to be willing to do the dirty jobs. And what these programs teaches you. It teaches you to be, dependent on yourself, but ask for help. Dependent on yourself and ask for help. If you won't ask for help, how's somebody gonna know that you need help? And you can't get mad if they don't help you because you didn't ask them for help. And they're just saying, closed mouth will never get fed. So you don't ask for work, you won't get no work. So I was just fortunate that I had a good team that had my back and that was willing to go out for me and help me out. And there's guys that, and that's why I say programming is so big, because it teaches them responsibility. If you don't know responsibility, you won't know how to do those jobs that you need. You won't know how to ask for help. You won't feel embarrassed to work at a McDonald's or do a stick and pay or work at a Kentucky Fried Chicken or be a janitor. And like I told the parole board, listen, if a dog poop on the ground, I'm behind picking it up once we pay me. I have no problem working. I have no problem working. I will do everything I can in order to make it to the top, but you have to start at the bottom. You have to start at the bottom. Because then once you get at that top, you will appreciate it more. Because they just throw me at the top, I'm not going to appreciate it. And the job that I have now is I appreciate it. Every day I let them know, thank you for this opportunity. I know when, we thank you for you. And they know my situation. They know everything about me. I don't hide nothing. And that's a joy of having this job, because I didn't mind starting at the bottom. And I show my appreciation to them every day by going to work on time and working hard and working in the rain, to the point where my sneakers is wet and I'm coming in my room like, what's that smell? So it's a joy. And my reentry was good. And that's why I say programming is big, because it helps those to learn. You have to start at the bottom in order to rise to the top.
And so can you explain to us a little bit about what it means to be on parole, from, having a parole officer and what that relationship is, and restrictions on your freedom? And just so everyone knows, he is going to be on parole for his entire life unless the parole board starts to really give serious entertainment to motions to terminate parole. But as of right now, he is on parole for the rest of his life. So just talk to us about your parole officer, what is required of you in terms of reporting, and how it's impacting your day-to-day life.
Well, I leave 6 in the morning. My curfew is 6 in the morning to 10 at night. I have to be in 6 in the morning. I gotta leave not 5:59. 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. Not 10:01. 10 p.m. And your parole officer is like your skin. He knows where you at. At all times. He knows I'm here. Without him watching me, because I wear a monitor every day, and they want you to work. If you don't work, If you act lazy, they'll send you back. If you get in trouble, they'll send you back. Just the littlest things that they can send you back. But, you know, I'm one of the lucky ones, like I said, I'm being honest, you know, have a good parole officer. And I talk to him every day and just say if I'm doing something, you know, I'll be like, listen, Patrick, yo, I'm here. He's like, oh, thank you for telling me, you know. And for my job, I'm like a tracker, you know, and when I'm in my tracker, like if one of the salesmen have to go to like Providence, Rhode Island, or, you know, Connecticut, you know, I follow him there. And one day I just forgot I went to Providence and I forgot to call him and let him know. And he called me, he's like, William, what are you doing in Providence? I said, oh yeah, I'm tracking. He's like, all right. And I was like, when as soon as I make it back to land, I call. And he was like, all right. So as long as you know, you have to basically let him know exactly everything that you're doing, you know, if it's out of the realm of right, you know, what they consider to be right, you know, because what you consider to be right, they might not. So I let them know everything, you know. The only thing I'll let them know is when I'm taking a shower. You know, but I don't think that'll be appropriate. Other than that, you know, I let them know everything. And he's like a call away. So, and if whatever I need, if I say to him, you know, I need an hour or two extra, you know, as long as you let him know, he'll put it in and give me an hour or two extra. But there was a time that, you know, I was maybe like 5 minutes late. You know, 5 minutes late, they really don't care, but you know, you feel your ankle going like, oh, it tells you like you're 5 minutes late, you gotta hurry to get back. You know, so it's hectic. You gotta take a shower with it, but you can't take a bath, you can't go swimming or nothing. So it's easy to be put back in, you know, but it's hard to get out.
So you mean that's because of the ankle bracelet?
It's because of the ankle bracelet, yeah. Because
Right.
they know exactly where you're at all the time. But if you don't have an ankle bracelet, you know, you don't have curfew no more. You know, so once the ankle bracelet come off, I can go anywhere. But if I'm going out of state, you know, I have to call them like give permission to go out of state. You know, but I can go anywhere else. You know.
And so just to clarify, you know, William really is extraordinary and his experiences are not always reflective of other people's. And so by him going to Providence, a lot of people might have ended up back in prison for that. Same thing with being 5 minutes late. So, I mean, it goes to show, you know, programming gave him the tools to be able to communicate very clearly and openly with his parole officer. And that's been a real key to his success while he's been on parole. But a lot of people don't have that experience or that forgiveness from their parole officers. And my last question to you is there a way that the law students or the community as a whole can help you and other people during the reentry process to make it easier for you?
Yeah, I would say yes, because, you know, you have a lot of people that you know, when they learn something, they stay in that one box. You know, put holes on both sides of that box and the back of the box to where you can learn other things. And law isn't just something where you go into court and be like, okay, you know, Mass General Law, Chapter 47B, you know, it's about, you know, showing that person that, you know, you care and you're there for them. Because, you know, I had a lot of attorneys that be like, oh, I care about you. Yeah, I think he's guilty. You know what I'm saying? So you don't want that. You know what I mean? You have to go in there with an open heart and open mind. And if you're willing to help that person and give them your all, that person will actually, you know, you'll see a difference in that person. So when you go into this field here, you know, you can't go in with a opinion. You know, you have to form your opinion when you meet the person and you get to know the person. You know, you don't formulate the opinion before you get through, oh, I read his paperwork, oh yeah, he's this. Because black and white don't tell who the person is. Only the person can tell who he is. You know, and like I said, if you read the paperwork, if you read my trial transcript, you would swear up and down I was a serial killer. You know what I mean? But then when you meet me, you're like, that just don't match who he is.
Yeah.
You know, so be the person, have a fair mind, and keep an open heart.
and just be there, because a lot of these guys, they don't have anyone. They don't have a resource. And so just knowing that there's someone out there, I have a question, I can't get my ID, you know, how do I get a bus pass? All these things, a lot of these guys don't know how to do. And so I think really just making the commitment to be there for the first year for someone will make all the difference in the world. And I think the recidivism rate would really go down. But with that, we are open for questions. So if anyone has a question for William about anything that we've talked about, please feel free to let us know.
A comment in the chat from Judge Blitzman congratulating you and saying what a fantastic job you did. And I'd just like to echo that sentiment as well. Students, do folks have questions for William? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Allen. I just had a question about the kind of public pressure campaign that was put on for the conversation. As you've seen, probably since 2020, there's been a lot of public pressure against criminal justice reform, and that's been sort of picked up by the media. There's a whole blitz on that front. What do you think was effective about the campaign for your communication? What kinds of things did you guys try to put in the messaging? Whether it was in the radio shows or op-ed and all that.
No one criticized no one. They told the story. And when you have somebody that tells the story so profound and so well, you know, people tend to listen. Like, you know, when you go to the movies and you see a great movie and you catch that plot, you're like, wow, this is a good movie right here. I want to listen to it. I want to watch it. You know, that's what it was. They told the story. You know, they didn't say, you know, oh, we hate your politics. We don't like what you do here. No, they kept the story as a story. They told the story. And that's what it's all about. It's when you tell that story and not criticize somebody or yell at somebody, you know, they tend to listen. But if you criticize somebody and you yell at them, you know, you're like, yeah, okay. You know, like mom, like, I said, don't touch that stove. Yeah, whatever, mom. You know what I mean? So it goes to that effect. They told a story. And the story that they told was so profound, and it made people want to listen. And it made people want to act. That's what it was.
I would say William wrote his story. We just told it. And our struggle was finding an audience to listen to it. But really, I think all of the good things that William has done in his life, just to hear about it, to see it, to listen to it, I think the injustice of his continued incarceration was so clear that his situation really provided a perfect vehicle to alert the public to commutation being a remedy, the failure to use it, and to convince Governor Baker and his executive branch that this is something that really should happen. But William wrote the story, we just told it.
Other questions? Yes. And if you could speak up, that would be super helpful. Thank you.
Firstly, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic experience. My question has to do with, and you've spoken a lot about the programming that you were a part of, and I'm wondering if you feel like you are the person you are today because of your experience in prison or despite your experience in prison?
Well, you know, if you knew me back when, I was a good kid, you know, that had no guidance. And I did everything I was supposed to do, you know, as far as schooling and stuff. I worked all the time, but I didn't have, I would say I didn't have confidence within myself. You know, I would say I use other people's confidence. Like if I see somebody else doing good, I'm like, oh, I want to do that too. You know, or if I see somebody doing something wrong, I'm like, okay, I know it's wrong, but I want to be cool. You know, so I was more, like I said, I was playing both sides of the fence. And, you know, I wasn't out there beating people up, shooting people, or anything like that, but I was one of those ones like, William, I need for you to go over here. And that's like, okay, you know what I'm thinking. And I was a follower, you know, instead of a leader. And today, you know, I'm a leader. And if I see somebody doing something stupid this way, you know, I'm going this way. you know, and I was like, I'll see you later, all right? You know, or I hear my father calling me, you know, or something like that. But, or I hear Patty or Chris or Station Justice, you know. But, you know, I think about, you know, the people that fought so hard for me to get out. And that's what I wasn't doing. I wasn't thinking about that. I didn't take the time to be like, okay, if I do this, you know, how would they feel? You know, but now I have, because of the programming, you know, in prison, you know, it opened those doors. You know, those doors I didn't know I had. And then when those doors open for me, you know, I try to help other people to open the same doors. You know, like I said, I'm a different breed, I guess, but you know, everybody could be this breed too.
We have time for one more question. Yeah, thank you.
I just want to say thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. I just think you're incredibly humble, and I just like want to acknowledge that like the programming wasn't accessible to you and you made that happen for yourself, and like that's not an easy feat. And I feel like as law students, we are constantly coming up against like challenging system, and it's exhausting and like really discouraging in a lot of ways, but you seem to be so like persistent and like have found the ability to navigate the system in a way that's like worked for you and like changed lives for other people. What's like advice you would give, like your trust in just sharing your story, and like you share the story, people will listen. Like I don't have that trust. I feel like we're telling stories all the time and like nothing has changed in so many ways. What's like something you like have held on to, or like to be able to like trust to like create this like amazing positive change that you have?
Well, you have to, you know, it's called caring. You know, if you care about something that's dear to you, you know, you're not gonna let it go, and you're gonna keep fighting for it. You know, because if you have questions about what you're doing, then you don't care too much about it. You know, so I would say caring is where it's at. You know, I care about, you know, programming, and I want programming to be a part of DOC, and because it helped me out, you know, and I seen how it's, you know, there's a quick story. There's a guy that was in prison, and he was fighting, doing all kinds of fighting police, everything. You know, he got into program. I want to say he got into alternative violence. Now I remind him, like, yeah, okay, he ain't gonna make it. Now he's running it. You know what I mean? Now he's running it, and I'm trying to tell you, when you see the change and people that was of the worst, you know there's hope, and that gave him hope. So when you feel like you get tired or no one is listening, trust me, somebody is. They might not be showing it at that moment, but they're listening. And if you keep being persistent, you know, you have that itch and you keep scratching it, but it won't go away, but you keep scratching it, you won't stop scratching until it goes away. So it's the same way, you just keep going at it. Somebody will listen to you eventually. And look, 25 years, Governor Baker listened, and he committed Kunsanai's sentence, and now we're free.
Thanks so much, William. Thank you, Patty. We're sorry you couldn't join us in person today, but it was a real privilege being able to hear from both of you today. And I just want to again say thank you for your.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here, and I'm glad that these conversations are being had.
I think that you're going to dance, so we're waiting on her now.
Thank you so much. I'm going to turn off the recording now, and I appreciate everyone's attendance. Thanks for coming to hear us.